Good, off to a good start here. All right, I'm Ken Baldauf, and I'm from Florida State University, and I'm here to talk to you about online teaching. How many of you are teaching courses online currently? Keep your hand up if the majority of your students are online students. About half of you kind of drop out. The ideal is to teach in the classroom and online at the same time, I found, because you learn so much from your classroom students that you can translate to your online students, right? How many of you are kind of up to date on what MOOCs are doing today? All right, what is a MOOC? We'll find out in this session. Essentially today, in my role at FSU, I found myself getting very much into learning about effective teaching online. And that's been my primary focus in the past few years. And so what I'd like to do is we'll start with just a little bit of a retrospect on where we've come from with online education. And I'll use that opportunity also to give you some background information about me and what I've done in taking courses online. And we'll bring it up to the current date and where colleges are today with online classes. And also how we're reacting to MOOCs. You'll learn all about MOOCs in this session. And perhaps most importantly, we're going to focus on the skills teachers need to effectively teach online. Because I find my role at Florida State University increasingly being helping people take their courses online. And so I've done a lot of thinking about, well, what does it take to be a good online teacher? What technical skills and what technologies we need? So we'll go back, we'll start this retrospect back in 1992 when I entered FSU as a graduate student in computer science. This is after a decade or so of living the life of a musician. So I came to FSU with very little math and computer experience, and I dove into the deep end and took probably 6 math courses over the course of 3 semesters, which is required for computer science, of course, and got my feet wet. I remember sitting down in the computer lab at the Unix terminal there, looking for the start menu to try to crank it up, and just everybody telling me, go get a book. It's, you got to learn this yourself. But what was exciting about that period was, anybody think about what was going on that was exciting about the internet around 1993? GUI? Yeah, but even more revolutionary than GUI. The web, that's right. You remember this? Mosaic, still near and dear to my heart. I remember we got this in our lab with the first copy, the day it was released, the first web browser, right? And we learned all about HTML. There was no CSS back then. We learned all about HTML forms. We studied how to create the server programs to manipulate the data. That was exciting stuff and accessible to everybody. I mean, prior to this, in my first year of graduate school, we were interacting with the internet from the command line, right? You type Elm or Pine to get your email, things like that. And now things were moving into this new kind of standard visual graphic user interface. So that continued for a few years. Around 1997, I was finishing up my master's degree, and I kind of paid my way through my graduate work by being a teaching assistant for the computer literacy course. I moved from being a recitation teacher or lab teacher to leading the lecture at that point. And at that point, everybody was saying or realized that college students these days need to prove that they know how to use computers to truly be college educated. And so all the schools started talking about different policies and requirements around computer literacy. Well, FSU put together a large committee of people, and they came up with this requirement for the computer skills competency, they call it. And it was that you need to have basic familiarity with computer hardware, operating systems, and file concepts. That's good there. Working knowledge of a word processor or a text editor, and at least one other software application, and then some experience and knowledge of the World Wide Web and email. Truly a policy written by a committee here. Everybody was happy with this, right? Or nobody was happy with it, but it was acceptable. So what this happened, the policy went into effect, and immediately we saw enrollments grow from a couple hundred students in the course I was teaching to a couple thousand students in computer literacy. And the computer science department at that point made me an offer to stay on as a faculty member and continue teaching the course. Well, another problem we had was that we had 2,000 students that needed to take computer literacy, and we just had a couple computer classrooms. And so I came up with this idea that why don't we put the course online? You know, I had this HTML experience, I had the web forms and server experience, and so computer literacy was one of the first courses to go online at FSU. You know, hundreds of students. And it's kind of ironic, right, if you think about it? An intro course in computers is taught online. You know, how do I turn the computer on to get to it, right? But we had faith. We sent people instructions through the mail. No, I don't think we actually did that, but it would have been a good idea. We had an orientation session, so students came to a lecture and we got them oriented as to how to take the course. This is also around the time that I wrote my first textbook, Windows 98. One of my happy textbook reps bopped into my office and said, you know, why don't you write a book? Linda Lenardos, anybody know Linda? She's covered a lot of Florida and that area. Linda wasn't, you know, unfortunately Linda was not with Course Technology at that time, so this book was published under another publisher, going unnamed at this point. But lo and behold, Linda saw the light and she joined Course Technology, and the next book I co-authored with Ralph Stair was under the Course Technology brand, Succeeding with Technology, which lasted for 8 years, up till almost the present, where another product kind of took over where that one left off. Also in 2004 was my first presentation at a Course Technology conference, and that was Computer Literacy, a New Approach. How to teach standing on your head, because basically that's what it takes to teach computer literacy lectures sometimes. A few years later, going through the sequence, I released the first Coursecast, and Coursecasts are still available today. In fact, this week is the 300th anniversary of Coursecast. Can you believe that? Thank you very much. Every weekend for 300 weeks, I've been cranking these things out. What are Coursecasts? They're technology news broadcasts that are very useful for your computer concepts course or your technology courses. So we like to add little, you know, this week in the news to your course. Well, each week I put out a podcast and also the transcript and also discussion questions for your students. And it's at coursecast.course.com. But I needed to throw that in there because of the anniversary. I can't believe 300 weeks. Time flies. Well, that same year of the first Coursecast, Facebook came onto the scene. 2007 was actually a huge year in the evolution of the web. Facebook came on the scene. Mobile smartphones started to really take off. We coined this term Web 2.0. You've probably seen this graphic before on Wikipedia. The I generation started making the scene. So the I generation are students that were essentially raised with the internet and web. Also, this made the scene. The Kindle, the first Kindle. You know, compared to some of the other hot and sexy devices on the market, this thing to me struck me as very office-like. But the e-paper idea was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, I was totally taken with e-paper. But I looked at these things as kind of an experienced textbook author at this point, and I said, you know, obviously we're putting books on devices now, but is this really where we want to go with it? Just taking PDFs and allowing people to scroll it. Certainly it makes your backpack lighter, but does it improve the education experience? And you know, obviously to me it didn't. It's just reading from another display. So at that point I started thinking hard about, okay, so if the Kindle isn't the future of textbooks, what is? And I started thinking about, you know, what's the best way for me to acquire information online? Well, I like Wikipedia a lot. I like the ability to go and read about a topic, click into the topic, into related areas, and kind of develop this body of knowledge around a subject. And so I would definitely have that kind of interlinked experience with an online textbook. Also, media is huge. We should embed media, and we should embed everything, all that rich content that's on the web, put it right into our textbook and monitor it to make sure it's up to date. And so students learn that the information is out there for them. They just need to go find it. They're not going to find all their information in one book all the time, right? So expose them to the wealth that is the web. You know, bring in interactivity, bring in social if we can, all that into one platform. Well, I took those ideas and I wrote up a proposal that I submitted to Course Technology for a new product, the future. We call it CT3G, Course Technology, the third generation. That being the first generation is the book, the second generation is the book with online support, the third generation is the book online with paper support if you need it. And Course Technology agreed with me that it's a good idea, and they invested all kinds of money to make it possible. This is actually the screenshot of what eventually became Emerge with Computers here as I envisioned it. So we have, most importantly, is that we chunk data. I think as we move forward into online textbooks, we have to remember that information is delivered differently on the web than it is in a book. We don't want to have long, lengthy passages to read on our displays. So we need to organize our information into small chunks, put them together sequentially, provide overviews of this information, and then embed all types of media with it. So this is, for instance, the page on multi-core processors. Images, obviously, you can look at the table of contents here. On the web, links to resources on the web, authoritative resources. A news feed that provides this week's news and this topic. MP3 audios, all this, embedded videos. I even envisioned a place where students can leave comments and have discussions about the topic. We were able to get almost all of that into Emerge, except for the social media part was a little bit tricky just because of maintaining those systems and watching them, and how do you have everybody around the world who's using the product participating in this discussion, or just people in your institution? It's a tough nut to crack. But Emerge with Computers worked on this for a few years, and then was fortunate enough to meet Beverly Amer, who has taken on the responsibility of managing the Microsoft Office part of the product. Bev, wave to everybody over there. And make sure to catch Bev's sessions. She's doing some great sessions about transitioning high school students to college life. I'm looking forward to that. It was a big year for me. I switched to a new job. FSU established a new program in interdisciplinary computing. And essentially, I can read. The idea here is that we want to research how we can add technology skills to students' discipline-specific training that they get in school to allow them to innovate. So our philosophy is that technology is important for innovation in every discipline. So what we do in PIC, the program in interdisciplinary computing, is we work with the colleges and departments to define what the computer skills are that they require of their students, and then we find those courses for the students on campus, and if they don't exist, we find ways to develop them. So 2012, that brings us up to date, essentially. That's where we are right now. Almost up to date. In 2012, something occurred that really got the attention of the media, these things called MOOCs, which have absolutely nothing to do with cows, but they make me think of cows whenever I hear the term MOOC. They stand for Massively Open Online Courses. So, how many of you have actually participated in a MOOC? How many of you that have participated completed the course? Very good. That's higher than the percentages of people who actually take the courses. So that was like 50% of you that tried a MOOC finished the MOOC. Good job, educators. Way to do it. All right, well, and by the way, you all jump in anytime, because I know a lot of you have ideas that, that can help this discussion.
I was almost raising my hand because it says I have completed successfully. I haven't even logged in.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did. I took a MOOC on Python to see, because I want to learn Python, and I thought I'd check it out. And I made it through maybe a month or so, and then I just dropped off. My own teaching got too busy. And in this particular course, gave you a certificate when you finished it. And I was hoping that maybe they wouldn't notice I dropped out, and I wanted to see if I'd get that certificate or not, but no, that they're on to me. But when we talk about massive, the first MOOC that got really broad range attention in the media was this course in artificial intelligence taught by Sebastian Thrun, which was one of the founders of Google, and Professor Peter Norvig from Stanford. They had 160,000 people from around the world enrolled in that course. So when we're talking about massive, we're talking in the hundreds of thousands or even millions of people enrolled. How many people complete the course? You know, that's another issue altogether. The articles never seem to focus on that. They just say, 2 million people signed up for it. When we talk about open, it means it's free. Anybody can enroll. It's offered, but the important thing about MOOCs is that they're offered on a timetable. So it's not like you can say, I want to go take that course on artificial intelligence from Sebastian Thrun this week, because it starts at a certain point. And that's important to MOOCs, and actually it's important to online learning, because you have a group of students working through the material together, right? So everybody's experiencing the same problems at the same time. And so you're able to produce wikis and things like this in order for students to communicate and help each other learn the topics. So synchronous interactions. That's really important. Online, well, we all know what online is, but the form that this takes is typically they have lectures from the professor, videotaped lectures from the professor. They may have some reading. They have frequent quizzes. So you do a little bit of work, you do a quiz. Is that what all your experiences were with MOOCs, pretty much? And they have community tools, typically in the form of discussion groups and wikis. And it's a course. Well, we all know what courses are, but more specifically, this is a non-credit earning course right now, offered by universities, typically by universities, sometimes by individuals like Sebastian, sometimes providing a certificate of completion. Now, this is an interesting area where I'm watching really closely, because what's the challenge of MOOCs in today's business world? Anybody have an idea? How do they make money? That's certainly. But also, what does the student have to show for it when they finish, right? Can you put this on your resume, that I completed Sebastian Thrun's AI course? And will that impress, more importantly, will that impress anybody? Well, they're moving towards that. I believe it's that MIT has partnered with a global testing center. So students that actually finish their course for free can go to the testing center at the end of the course, pay money for the test, and actually get a certificate that says you actually passed the same test that we offer at MIT. In California, anybody from California here? I hear it's very nice out there this time of year. In California, they have problems with students being able to pass entrance exams into the state university system. Is that true? I mean, that's what the paper says. And one of their solutions is to send students to complete a MOOC. But they just don't send them to complete a MOOC, they send them under the guidance of a professor at the university to complete a MOOC. So they have a person to go to if they have issues with some of the remedial skills that they need to catch up on. So California is definitely ahead of the game in the MOOC game, and also ahead of the game in how they're utilizing MOOCs. Very interesting to watch. I find all this intriguing, and I find it intriguing because of our reactions to this as universities and colleges. This is the article that my university, this was passed around all the email lists at my universities, from the administration all around. Links to this article from the New York Times. This is March 4th, 2012. Instruction for masses knocks down campus walls. And a quote from the article is, "Welcome to the brave new world of massive open online courses known as MOOCs, a tool for democratizing higher education." I almost got that word right. A little trip in there. I'm not going to try it again, because that'll just be pure entertainment. So this has to rattle some cages, right? Especially when you find out that the university in your state that's your biggest rival is starting to offer their own MOOCs, right? So this is Udacity. This is Sebastian Thrun's company that he started. Sebastian decided that he liked teaching hundreds of thousands of students more than he liked teaching dozens of students. And so he left and started his own company. And they have just some of the professors. This is Stanford area. They're offering their own special courses. They have about a dozen courses there. In the meantime, another company jumped on this idea, and this is Coursera. Now, I actually spoke to the people at Coursera to verify that I'm saying the name right. Coursera, not Coursera. 3 million students, 325 courses offered by 62 universities. This number just doubled last week. Just doubled last week. There's also edX. edX is the product of MIT, who developed, this is an open source platform. Anybody can offer courses on this platform. 25 courses in 12 universities. And then we have other tools that you can use to build MOOCs, like Google's Course Builder. You can go there and sign up and create your own MOOC right now. It's free. They have tutorials there. And Stanford's got something called Class2Go that it's offering as well. This is edX. This is just a few of their 62 universities here: Harvard, Berkeley, University of Texas, Rice University, University of Toronto, all different types of universities. Then there's this hodgepodge of other types of online education initiatives, right, that are very popular. Well, Open Culture offers 675 free online courses, and essentially it just points to things on YouTube or elsewhere. It's used as kind of an index of all the MOOCs that are out there. YouTube EDU, anybody's institution have courses on YouTube? How are they working out? Pretty well. iTunes U, I talked to an iTunes rep last week, and they're all about education. Apple wants to own education right now. And they claim that they've got the world's largest online catalog of free educational content. You just have to make sure you use iTunes to access it. Khan Academy, interesting experiment there, right? Just short lessons on things you need to know. They'd like to be able to offer courses in every subject area. Right now they're really strong in math. And lynda.com, you familiar with Lynda? FSU just got a free license to take any course at Lynda. You guys too? It's a great opportunity. Yeah, the university pays for it. I don't. But it's a great opportunity. So now I teach a web design course, and I was going to do a video about typography, right? And I just went on Lynda, and I found a typography video, and I just tell my students, go watch this. It's good, better than I could do. And so, the schools are seeing all this happen, obviously, and our first gut reaction is, what are we going to do? We're behind the times already. We're going to die. There are going to be 12 universities that own the whole, university system in the country now. And generally, they feel a lot of pressure now, especially, like I say, when your competitive universities are watching your competitors go online. And so generally, people aren't jumping on the MOOC idea. Certainly at FSU, in the administration, they're not wanting to go online. They want the campus experience for students. That's our current stance. I expect that will change over time. But they're definitely saying, let's go explore this space. Not only that, the governor of the great state of Florida has authorized state universities to charge extra fees for distance learning. And so there's different incentives to take courses online that way. Also, large enrollments. There's all kinds of reasons why universities are deciding to go online. But I know it's true at FSU because I have professors in religion, professors in English, calling me up and say, Ken, can I come meet with you? Can you talk to me about how to put my course online? Because my department wants me to do it. And I don't know what we're doing. Now, our university does have a great support system, the Office of Distance Learning, that has a great training program for teachers. What we do in my program is we experiment with alternate forms of techniques for online education outside of Blackboard, outside of the system established there, kind of experiment to see what works. Some of the stuff I'm going to share with you today. All right, so as these teachers are calling me, I've got teachers asking me, what do I need to do from a technology standpoint to take my course online? And then I had the technology department calling me saying, Ken, we're not sure what teachers will think about this technology. Can you let us know? So I'm thinking, you know, computer teachers rock. We rock when it comes to online ed. And why is that? Because we have both the pedagogical experience and we have the technology experience. We're one of the rare, pieces of the population who can understand this from two perspectives. And I think if you can establish yourself in that role, you can be a real asset to your institution. But it takes work. It's kind of like an additional research job. But that's why you're here, right? So you don't have to work so hard. All right, so in my experience, and anybody chime in here, because I know some of you are doing some really interesting things with online ed. But I'm able to kind of organize online education challenges into three areas. The first is content. How are you going to deliver the content? Right? And I'm going to talk in depth about each of these areas. The second is assessment. A real challenge, especially if you're dealing with students that are never on campus or are unable to be on campus. And finally, community and communication. And I've found that this is the secret to online teaching success here. And a lot of people just leave this out completely. They just deliver the information and test students on it and give them assignments. But this is the key. If I had to weight these, I would weight them all equally, 33 1/3 apiece. So let's look at content here. By the way, I'm fishing to get the award for the largest type font. So when you do that thing, the online review of this session, make sure to put in there that Ken had the biggest fonts and the biggest ideas. You can just throw that in there too. I figure big fonts mean big ideas. So content, we're going to look at three areas of content. Let's look at design first. Okay? So I've already made this point when I was talking about Emerge, and that it's the first thing you do when you have to take a course online is look at the whole course. What are all the things you're teaching? All right? And you have an established way you've been teaching those in the classroom. That established way that works in the classroom doesn't work online. You have to look about how to organize these into a sequence of bite-sized chunks. If you're a web designer, you know all about chunking things. It's a very common term in web design. And that's the way we deliver content. So you have to put things into units. And who knows, you may have 24, 30 units across the course of the semester instead of 8 chapters. Next, we look at mix. So besides delivering the content, we have to see how we mix that with student activities. So information acquisition, student production, what our students are actually active with, interaction between students within the class, and evaluation. So all of these kind of have to be mixed together. And this is how you get students working with each other, if you're having them doing exercises with each of your chunks of learning. And finally, deliver. So chunk, mix, and deliver. It sounds like a recipe for something here. I don't want to eat it, whatever it is. This is the interesting part, and I spend time thinking about this every day. And that is, I have this concept I need to relate to my students. What's the best way to do it? Do I write 8 paragraphs and have a really useful illustration there? For some things that might work, or a bulleted list. Do I do a diagram, or do I do a video? Do I do a demonstration? What's the best way to teach this? Now, if you're teaching skills, hands down, the best way to do it is with a video. You capture your screen motion, you put some narration above it, and you're all set. And there's a lot of software that makes that really easy to do. But if you're teaching concepts, there's all different types of ways to do it. I just recently developed a unit on responsive design for my web design course. Responsive design is how to use CSS to change the web page layout to accommodate any display. So the browser checks to see what size your display is, and it shows a particular layout from one HTML document. Well, I realized that the best way to do that was text in a lot of screenshots. And that seemed to work best for that lesson. Other than that, I do mostly videos. All right, so you might have a video, and then you might have the students take some actions. You know, now you've learned how to do that, you do it yourself, right? Is that what you guys do? And so you have to decide, well, how much of video, how much information do you pour into the student before you ask them to you know, take that and apply it in their own exercise. So this is all about the content design. But remember, with online, just like in the classroom, once you do this for one semester, you can go ahead and use the same material for next semester. You don't need to record yourself talking again, right? Unless, you know, CSS4 comes out, then I have to start from scratch, or Office, you know, whatever, 2015. That is our challenge, isn't it? All right, some items for consideration, and this is important. This is the biggest area that kind of, this is a common approach to people who haven't done things online, and that is put everything in a PDF. And students don't want to do that. They don't want to go online and click a link, have it download, and have a document they have to read. You need to deal in native web languages. And I understand this isn't possible for everybody. We have, you know, Blackboard and other LMSs have little editing windows that automatically create the HTML. Yes?
I was just going to say on my online course, I initially started out with HTML. And there were 80 in the course, and a good number of them requested PDF and doc format. So I just made yet another HTML page with a listing of the material in PDF and doc format.
Is it because they wanted to print it out?
They did want to print it out. Exactly. Maybe 2 out of 80 actually wanted to read it.
But maybe if they sleep with it under their pillow, they'll acquire. Well, that's interesting. I don't understand why you can't print out an HTML page, though. But
I thought the HTML looked better. It had the links. It was much more effective, much more
Yeah.
interactive.
Yeah.
Yet, in all seriousness, there was a pretty good demand for PDF.
Yeah, it's interesting, but realize again, depending on what you're teaching, the nice thing about teaching online is it's a fluid environment, so you can alter things and change things. I'm constantly running into students who have problems because they printed things out, and this document I printed 2 months ago, you said this, and you know, now you're saying something else, so that's something to consider as well. Personally, I like to stick with native web formats. Yes?
I think that there's a shift in paradigm. I ran into the same thing. And in fact, I was teaching for a virtual campus for about 8 years, and they have always forced us to submit our syllabus in anything but HTML, format, which I thought was a little odd. But I think that when we have the conversations about e-texts and students that are adopting that and how hard it is to go all the way over to I still think there's a timeline and a progression taking place here in terms of formats and what's expected, and then it will transition over time. So what I'm doing to try to prepare is I give them what they're looking for now, and while I'm doing that, I'm creating what will take place when I feel like the tide has kind of shifted.
Interesting.
I agree
I
100%.
can transition.
Yeah.
I had actually met face-to-face 3 of the students that requested PDF, and with no offense, they were older.
No offense taken. Yeah. And that's the same thing with Emerge. It's a totally online product, but we offer a printout, and typically we see the older students that want them printed out. And, you know, I used to think, yeah, we need to cater to that. More recently, I'm thinking that we need to bring these people online. Because if they need printouts of everything, they're going to have a hard time dealing with all the things that are required that don't have printouts that are online. But maybe, I don't know. That's the direction I'm going. But I mentioned, though, you know, yes, sir.
But we have to keep in mind that we're creating this stuff. They are receiving.
Mm-hmm.
That's different when you
Yeah, good point, yeah.
feel they actually have something to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a state where there's a lot of interstate driving, and probably a lot of homework reading on that interstate.
Mm.
So I don't know whether they feel they have to plan it and then look at it later, because they don't like to, as much as they learn technology, they don't necessarily like to tie it to
Mm-hmm.
for course requirements.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I guess probably the solution is trying to provide things as many formats as you can. But certainly you shouldn't be required to download a document and open it in order to read the contents of the course in an online course. That's just silly. I mentioned, how many of you use Blackboard here? And Blackboard has the text editor that lets you create things within Blackboard. Have you ever seen the HTML generated by that text editor? Oh my gosh, it's worse than like Word. And to get things done in that text editor is a real headache. But not only that, once you get it in there, how do you get it out? What if you want to take it and share it with a friend of yours, right? You can't get into Blackboard because they'll need a password. So you got to give them your password to get in there to look at a document you created. I guess there's ways to share things through Blackboard, but it's certainly not easy. So consider that when you're putting things online, is what's the ownership of this content? Where is it stored? Who owns it? Is it easy to move from one system to another? Consider this for videos, for PowerPoints, all of these things. Generally, I try to put things in a format that I own, that I can keep. I know my university owns it as well because they pay my bill, they pay my paycheck. But I like to have it so if I move to, to a different area or a campus, I want to use it differently, I can do that. It's not a big headache. And finally, accessibility. So this comes into this as well. And, how can you access this with a password or without a password? If it's in Blackboard, it's going to be password protected. That may be something that you like, to keep your stuff locked down. I try to be open with my material so I can share it with anybody that'd like to learn it. So I try to keep it out of password-protected areas. Yes?
One of the other concerns in all three of those is what if a student wants to view the material offline? So the
Right.
assumption is that broadband is widely available, and in most cases that is the case. But there are times when I will download something to a format on my tablet so that I can take it with me when I don't have access somewhere and read it at my leisure.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And it goes to your point about, we're still transitioning. We're not quite there yet. All right, finally, the skills, not finally, but finally for the content area, the skills required to develop this content. I encourage people that are teaching online to learn just basic web skills, understand HTML, learn WordPress. It's a great application for learning content management systems, and what you learn in WordPress, developing a website there, can translate to dozens of other platforms. I have a website, well, I'll give you a link to my website at the end, but I have a free WordPress tutorial if you're interested in doing that. Learn about hosts and servers and things like that, hosting companies. It's very useful for all of this, and it'll be a use to your institution as well. For WordPress started out as a blogging tool. Now it's a content management system. You can go to WordPress.com and create a free website. So it used to be just blogging. Now it's really a website development tool for free. The WordPress.org allows you to download the WordPress software to your own server and maintain your own copy of it, which is a great learning experience. Just about every web hosting company allows you to install WordPress to create your website there. So GoDaddy or DreamHost or any of these, click one button and it installs WordPress and you have a website. It's a great learning experience. For students too, I have all my students do this. For media, you need to acquire some skills in graphics editing, video capture and editing, screen capture, then the online delivery systems. I like Vimeo a lot, really high quality videos that you can produce there and embed it right in your HTML content for your course. The same thing for YouTube. YouTube has some restrictions on it unless you have an educational account. Screen share is nice for sharing PowerPoints. Prezi, you all are probably familiar with Prezi, the alternative to PowerPoint. And educational technology. If you're teaching online, you should be up with what's going on currently in online technology, and it changes every day. It's such a fast-moving area of study. Learn about all the different learning management systems. Be active with social media. Learn about the different e-publishing tools that are out there. And a website I would recommend heavily is Edudemic, E-D-U-D-E-M-I-C, edudemic.com. When I discovered this last year, I was just amazed at all the great articles they have about using technology in the classroom. Amazing stuff. Time is ticking here, so I'm going to kind of speed it up a little bit here. When we look at assessment in online courses, this is our biggest challenge. Typically, you want to assess frequently with low levels of points in your quizzes, so students can make sure they're keeping up with the content, and you can identify issues early on. The value you give to your quizzes and exams is an important consideration. One thing you might consider is how easy is it for students to cheat on assignments in the class? Can you be sure students are doing their own work on the assignments? And typically the answer to that is, of course. Is no. So in that case, you have to look at weighting these exams a lot heavier to make sure that students acquire the information. And maybe not hit them just with a midterm and a final, but give them a few tests to get used to the pressure. And security is huge. We're experimenting a little bit with unproctored exams this semester. And there's different ways you can do that. You create a large data pool for your exam questions. You make them as random as possible. Randomize the selection of questions, randomize the delivery of questions, make sure they get one question at a time so that students aren't looking through all the questions and helping each other online. Randomize the solutions when possible. There's software that allows you to monitor online exams through the webcam. So Integrity is what we're using, and I just heard that Central Florida is using it as well. Integrity, the students have a webcam, they show their ID in front of the camera, and they take the exam, and it films them the whole time they're taking the exam. There's even businesses that have come up around this idea that that's all they do is proctor online exams for universities.
You can also reduce the value of it. In other words, make those worthless in their grade.
Which ones? The exams?
The exam.
Yeah, somewhere you have to make sure you're evaluating what they know is the problem. Yeah. So community community, the teacher-student relationship online is hugely important, and especially when it comes to providing students with feedback on their work, because really that is our teaching opportunity in online courses, is when you see students making mistakes, that you jump on it. You just don't say, okay, well, you got 60%, good enough, go on to the next test. You take that opportunity to reach out to students and help them with that. And then the community of students together helping each other is really important. And LMSs don't properly support this type of interactivity. I wanted to show you I know I'm about out of time. I wanted to show you what we do in my courses. And essentially what I'm doing is I use Blackboard for all my record keeping in the course, assessment, submitting assignments, syllabus, things like that. And then I'm using BuddyPress, which is a plugin for WordPress that essentially creates a Facebook-like environment for just my students. And let's see if I can... Okay. So this is my Blackboard site for my course, my web design course. I click on, everything's here, the syllabus, submit assignments, quizzes and exams. I click on the learning community, and it takes me to the BuddyPress, which I've installed on our servers. And BuddyPress has things like a news feed where it asks you what's new. And students are able to share their work, ask each other questions. Students have their own profiles, so they provide their image just like on Facebook. And it allows you to ask questions that are important about the student. So if I look at this student's profile, I can see where she's from, what her major is, what her, are you willing to assist your classmates in the class? Do you like to work in groups? And what's your level of expertise on the topics that's taught in this course? So students can look at each other's profiles, see where people have experience, ask them for help, ask them questions, we have a chat room where my TAs are online answering questions of students. Of course, it's spring break right now, so nobody's in the community. All different types of things here that we can use to create this community of users. So students have to have a way of finding out about each other, who they are, building those relationships and chatting. Yes? Yes, they do. When they first, and we use our institutional login to access this as well. So it's password protected. This is by class right now. Now, this is certainly something that will be built into LMSs eventually, but we have need of it now. And this is a solution. I mean, I do a poll of what students think about this system, and they're blown away by it. And they say every class should be using this same software. Yes?
We just switched to Canvas this last fall.
Mm-hmm.
It really does this sort of.
But Canvas doesn't have the news feed. That's what I miss in Canvas right now. They have the profiles. And the nice thing about Canvas is it's institution. So, you know, students can share their profile from course to course to course. So they're getting there. They're getting there, aren't they?
Just wondering whether you have evaluation for online participation.
Yes, we do. We have participation exercises in the participation forums. And so I do a half dozen or so assignments where students are asked to discuss topics in the discussion room. And you can actually, Katie here, we can actually look through and see all of her activity. So if I want to see if Katie participated in the discussion and what she had to say, it'll load just here in a second. I can see what she's posted in different forums, what she's posted in the news feed, all her activities, and here she's had a little dialogue with somebody. It's all right there. Again, this takes a little work to set up, but we're kind of researching these areas in our course. Yes, ma'am.
Do you use groups in Blackboard?
Yes, I've used groups and discussion boards in Blackboard. What I really miss in Blackboard is having a student profile and having a news feed. The news feed is huge. When you have students just talk about anything they want, that's where relationships are developed, not when you ask them, you know, what do you think about this? They're just doing it to do it. But having a free-form conversation that's ongoing across the whole semester is hugely valuable. Best practices really quickly here because we're out of time. This is from Edudemic. What students can teach each other is just as important as what the professor teaches. Online should never mean easy for teachers or for students. It's really tempting to make things easy so students succeed online when you have to keep the rigor up there. Let students get to know you as a person. You really need to develop relationships with students. That's really a key to success for online teaching. Understand it's not just a day job, it's just integrated into your life. Isn't that true, those of you who... be willing to revise and refine your lessons as you go. You're going to do stuff that doesn't work. And tell students, sorry, we're going to change this and make it work. Giving thoughtful and regular feedback is essential. I already said that. And high-quality course materials count even more online. The online content is really important. And stressing to students that they need to read it and not just scan it. All right, so my website is techminded.co. This presentation will be up there later today, as well as a lot of other information I hope you find useful. I'm sorry, 45 minutes or 50 minutes went really fast, but thank you all. Have a great conference here. We'll see you around.